Okay. I have not. I guess I could read them.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's up to you how you want to do it.
Okay.
I'm just glad you got the packet because I didn't know if anyone got it. The mail has been
Yes.
wacky
the
lately.
mail was awful. And I shouldn't say just UPS, it's also FedEx it's not just the postal mail, it's the post office. It's also FedEx and UPS.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, at that same time I mailed that out, I also mailed a package for my daughter to New Jersey, and it went to Connecticut and then Nashville and then back to New Jersey. So it just got there, and I mailed those out on the 22nd, and the package just got to New Jersey.
Yeah. I bet it went to Nashville.
Yes.
I bet it got subbed out to FedEx.
Well, yeah, and then a friend of mine sent me a package from Seattle that went to no, I think it went to Connecticut, but then that's in Atlanta right now. Yeah. Just sitting there.
Yeah.
And she sent that like December 7th.
Yeah. Oh, and UPS said, because I had to mail out a package the other day, they said it would normally take 5 days for $12. If I wanted to get it there in 2.5 days, it would be $35. Like, that's a little ridiculous. But
it's cheaper to drive it there. Well, it depends on where it's going.
Lee's here, okay.
Yeah.
Supposedly Victoria is going to join, and I think Betty is also aware of it.
Yep, and Dwayne.
And there's Hal, okay.
I am here.
Thank you. There we go. There's Dwayne.
I'm on mute because I'm eating dinner.
Yep.
Joe said he was going to try to get on via his phone.
Okay. That's good. At least we know we have a quorum tonight. Thank you. That's the main reason I asked.
Oh, there he is. And Betty.
Hi there.
And Victoria.
There.
Now we need Mr. Burdine.
Yep.
Good to see you all.
Likewise.
Can you see or hear me, Bob?
Yes, we can hear you, Joe.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Just that. Okay. Sounds like Joe's eating dinner.
You say it's not me.
Somebody, doesn't matter. We're not recording yet.
Just roughly.
Yeah, we are, and we're live on
We
YouTube.
are live, okay.
I don't think the raisins make that kind of noise.
That's
Just the mango when you have it.
Yes, that's okay, we're allowed. Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we have a full board, not quite full board. So at 7:01, why don't we get going? So, oops, I need to get all my text ready. Okay, I'll call the January 7th, 2021 Town of Northwood Planning Board public hearing to order at 7:01. With the following statement: as chair of the Northwood Planning Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. And members of the board who are present should state their name for the record in any order that you.
Joseph McCaffrey, virtually present.
Al Kreider.
Lee Baldwin,
Betty Smith.
Wayne Curry.
Victoria's muted. There you go.
Gloria Parmalee.
Yeah, I think we have Betty Smith left, but she can speak for herself.
Already did.
We can barely hear you, Betty.
Better.
Okay. I can see your mouth moving. I believe Tim Jandeberg just joined us by phone. Can you confirm that, Tim?
Yes, I am.
Okay, we can barely hear you.
I don't know. I hear you fine.
Okay, that's better. Thank you. We're just waiting to get Betty's audio up and running.
Now?
We can hear you, just barely.
Is that better?
That's better. Hopefully we won't have much discussion tonight. It'll be somebody reading and then we can do votes, but we'll see how that works. Okay. Whoops. So we have a public hearing on our 2021 zoning amendments, proposed zoning amendments. This is the first public hearing. And I believe the general process for this is that we read the proposed amendments. Is that correct, James?
We typically present them. If you
Okay.
want me to read them all out, I can. It's 8 pages of reading.
Correct.
So I'd prefer to go through and talk about what's in each section rather than read it verbatim, but I can
Boy, do I
share
like
my
that idea.
screen if you would like, and that way you'd all be able to see it on the screen. The recording should pick it up for people watching at home. And we can go through section by section.
I don't see the need to read them. I think an overview of the proposed changes or whatever you'd like to present with a screen share would be fine.
Okay.
Unless anybody has any objections.
No, that sounds good.
All right, you want me to go ahead and?
It's fine with me.
Susan, can you enable screen sharing? Thank you. Here we go. Okay, can you all see that?
Yes.
So you should all have gotten, my draft is dated the 30th of November. So either that last week of November or the first week in December, you should have received a PDF laying out the ballot language at the beginning, the full inline changes of the zoning ordinance, proposed changes to the Wetland Conservation Overlay District. And then it does also have about a page and a half of my comments at the end, trying to summarize, mostly for the benefit of the public, why we are making any changes at all, and the rationale behind the particular changes that we are proposing. Everything in this document has been reviewed by town legal counsel, and the only requested change was a minor change to the ballot language that has already been made. So if the board is supportive of the language as it stands, you can feel free to send to the ballot if you choose, or if you would prefer to have a second public hearing, you could decide to do that at the end of the night. So to sort of reiterate why we're making a change to the Wetlands Conservation Overlay District, it's a little bit confusing and a little bit conflicting, and we've had a couple of cases in recent years where we had to sort of tease out some of the language, and the board had to make some decisions about how to resolve some things that were just confusing about how to use it. So we're trying to make this more user-friendly. We are generally trying to keep approximately the same level of regulation that we had previously, although in a few cases we are making some minor changes that we feel are more consistent with the spirit and intent of what was of what the prior ordinance was supposed to be addressing, but changing language that may have resulted in some consequences or circumstances that weren't part of what was intended originally. And I can talk about those as we get there. So the Wetlands Conservation Overlay District is part of Section 6, which is all of the overlay districts. It is Section 6A under that. And the purpose statement of that hasn't changed at all. This is just the general rationale for why we regulate wetlands, and we didn't see any reason to change that. The overlay district boundaries, we have updated we've restructured a little bit. We have not changed anything about what goes into the overlay, but the existing overlay has two different subsets of wetlands that are regulated more strictly. And those are one, wetlands that have been designated as prime wetlands, and two, wetlands that overlap with the conservation overlay district. And both of those higher priority wetlands are regulated the same way. So what we've done in this description of the boundary areas is we've simply pulled both of those descriptors, the map that refers to the prime wetlands, as well as the mention of that overlap area, and we've given it its own section with its own name. So it's easier to refer to those two categories of wetlands by one name. And we have the entire descriptor for where to find those in one place. Over the next two sections, we have made a few changes where they were previously described as permitted uses and uses that were permitted with a special exception. We tried to change that language a little bit to refer to impacts to the wetlands instead of uses more generally, because there were some uses that were described that may or may not necessarily impact the wetlands. Really the important thing is whether you are building a structure or disturbing the wetland. It's a little bit less important whether you are disturbing it for the purpose of putting a single family home versus a duplex versus a corner store, etc. So in this case, we made some minor changes generally throughout the section, replacing the term use with impact. And then we beefed up this language a little bit to say that even though some of these impacts are permitted by right, you need no permission from ZBA or anybody else to do them. Separate from review by NHDES for state wetland permitting. We wanted to at least make it clear that if you are going to impact the wetlands in one of these ways, our expectation is that you would not impact them any more than necessary as part of your proposed activities. The activities that are permitted by right remain the same. Wildlife refuges seemed like it was a little bit odd to have it hanging out by its own. So we simply relocated it, but it has not been eliminated. And then in consultation with the Conservation Commission, we wanted to allow for the cutting of vegetation or other activities that would be necessary for removal of invasive or noxious species in particular. Something that they discussed when meeting with them is that it frequently seems like the best way to treat wetlands, at least to a lay person, is, not touching them, no disturbance whatsoever seems better. But there are circumstances under which you would want to disturb or treat those wetlands in some way. Removal of invasive species being one important one, other general work for habitat management being another example. So we wanted to add that here. Yeah, Victoria?
James, how about use of pesticides to deal with invasive species? Is that dealt with?
I think that if I were to read this, since it focuses on cutting and placement of structures, etc. Well, I guess to back up a step, the thing that is not permitted is the disturbance and the construction. That's what is regulated by the overlay. The overlay is agnostic as it relates to pesticides, and pesticides are not a land use issue. And so to my awareness, communities that do limit your ability to use pesticides around wetlands, and there are some who do, have a separate ordinance for doing so. So I think that would be difficult for us to implement as part of a land use regulation.
Okay. It doesn't belong here then.
Yeah, I don't think it does. which is not to say it's a bad idea, but yeah, I think that people might not think to look here for something that isn't necessarily otherwise a land use item.
Yeah.
And I would be a little bit worried about the applicability of that more generally if it lived in zoning.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So the board will recall we previously had a blanket exception to allow by right driveway crossings to a single family or two family residential structure. And this is where I was talking about potentially some of those unintended consequences of the language that was enacted. The reason this exception was put in was that the ZBA did not want to hear cases regarding a culvert crossing or a driveway crossing over a drainage swale along the road. This would be something that is a ditch a couple feet wide, intended to take the runoff from the road, but was being identified as wetland by surveyors or soil scientists. And so the ZBA didn't want to have to issue a ditch variance, or what they call a ditch variance, every time somebody needed to put in a driveway culvert. It was not originally intended to allow somebody to put a single family home several hundred feet towards the back of a property and have a significant impact on a jurisdictional wetland. So we have tried to put in a few limitations to say that, yes, we want to keep this sort of common sense exception in some form so that we aren't putting a lot more extra work on the ZBA's plate, but we want to make sure that it's limited only to what was originally intended. So the impact must be less than 200 square feet of wetland area. That would be a driveway area of about 10 feet wide and 20 feet long, or equivalent dimensions. And it must be located within 100 feet of the road that's providing access. So once you get beyond that first 100 feet, at that point, we're talking about an impact to a jurisdictional wetland, and you would need some sort of relief. So this is something where the regulation is getting a little bit more stringent, but we feel that it's changing the language to be more in line with what the original intent was behind the language. So that's everything for the permitted impacts. Any other questions on that section? Okay, I can only see three of you at once because I can see myself. So if you have a question, speak up because I won't be able to see a raised hand or anything. The next section was regarding setbacks, and we did a little bit of reordering to move this up, but I thought that it was important to have the setbacks come before the special exception section, because the special exception section is how you're granting relief to those prior two areas. So in this case, most of this language was already existing, and you can see down here where I deleted the prior section 5 or paragraph 5 regarding setbacks. So in this case, structures shall not be placed within 20 feet of the edge of a wetland. This is our existing wetland setback. It is a structure setback, so you can't build a structure, but it does not limit other, lesser disturbances in the setback area. And then all of those other, so B is an added section, construction, alteration of terrain, other disturbance where you do need to do things in the setback area. We're requiring utilization of best management practices to prevent any erosion or sedimentation or pollution that would impact the wetland. So if you're gonna dig in the setback area, you can, but you need to make sure that you're doing your erosion control so that we don't get a bunch of silt building up in the wetland and damaging that ecosystem. There was also in the existing subsection 5 a provision that allowed pre-existing non-conforming lots to automatically reduce the distance of the setback. And in discussion with the board, we decided to eliminate that provision, in part because those pre-existing non-conforming lots are likely for the wetland to need more protection and not less. But also because we felt that under those circumstances, if the landowner could truly make the case that they absolutely have to have this impact on the wetland buffer in order to be able to use their property, that's justification for the ZBA to grant relief. And we felt that it was more appropriate for people to have to go through that process, in exactly the same way as every other conforming lot in Northwood. This would not change any of the other non-conforming rights that those lots would have under section 7 of the zoning ordinance.
I have a question before you move on, but go ahead and finish up this.
That's
section.
all I have to say about setback. So
okay. I was not aware of this. Well, it was brought up when before I was a resident in town, in living in a neighboring town, that Deerfield had updated their wetland setback, or was talking about it at that point in time, and I guess they've updated it twice. One of the comments made on when they're talking about this now 15 plus years ago, was that the wetland setback between was quite there was a big discrepancy between Deerfield and Northwood. I think Deerfield was proposing 35 feet. Northwood was at the time 25 feet. Deerfield moved to, I think it was 50 feet at that point in time. Now they are up to, for the wetland setback, is up to 100 feet. According to their zoning regulations currently, section 210.8, item E, for lots created after the adoption of this amendment, no structure shall be erected within 100 feet of any wetland. Prior to that is 75 feet of any wetland. We are at 20 feet from any wetland. We are abutting properties. Is there any, I raise that for discussion. I am not making a proposed change. Does anyone see any discrepancy between the two? Anything that we want to consider changing in this case? I mean, we did charge James, by my recollection, is to largely, rehash to make this the general same amount of regulation, but simplify it and have it make more sense. I heard somebody say something, but I don't know who it was and what they said. Sorry.
Hello, Mr. Chairman.
Well, it might have been. Okay, go ahead.
May I ask if we know if there's any public present?
Miss Anderson is with us.
Okay, I would suggest that we get through the whole thing first and then allow the public to have any input and then have the board discuss, within the board.
Sounds fine, makes sense. I'll withdraw my comment or
Well,
request for
Bob-
discussion.
Bob?
Yep.
Well, as I'm understanding, this is Joe, I'm understanding Linda just to say that the public comment be held off. That's fine. But as we go through this, a couple of little minor things I thought of, but I decided to pass on them because they weren't really going to make a difference in the wording or change something. But in regard to what you just said,
Can we hold off on
Deerfield
that?
may
No?
have,
Can we hold off onto that till we get to the end?
but do we not
I know I
want to
made the
address
comment,
this
but
per section?
I'd rather do it at the end after we get public comment, because public might have more to do with us, and that they shouldn't. I agree with Linda after I spoke on apologies on that. We shouldn't, members of the public who want to hear what we're proposing shouldn't have to wait for us to discuss it.
Okay.
So
You're
Any
saying
other,
this is what we are proposing. Changing it would not be is not going to affect this written version anyway. So okay, good.
correct.
If
We'll
I
wait
get
till
you.
the end after we get through them all. So I forgot about it. My apologies. Go ahead, James.
are there any other
Whoever's next.
questions regarding the current section 4 setbacks? Okay. So what is now section 5, impacts allowed by special exceptions. Again, similarly to the impacts allowed by right, we're changing a lot of uses to impacts. I've highlighted, I think, 2 more that in yellow that I would like to amend to impacts before the board sends this to the ballot. I just caught those today. Also within this section then are the criteria that the ZBA must consider a special exception request against. So for impacts to the wetlands that are essential to the productive use of land elsewhere on the property, there are 5 or there were 5 criteria. We are now proposing 6. Number 1, we rephrased a little bit to clarify the requirement to meet with the Conservation Commission. So some of it was just rephrasing. We also wanted to stipulate that the Conservation Commission provide their comments in writing. Whether that was the minutes of their meeting or a more formal letter is up to them. But we do want a written record of what was discussed. The second item is new, and it's something that I've reproduced under both sets of special exception criteria. And that is simply that the applicant needs to submit sufficient information necessary to demonstrate that the proposed impacts are essential for what they want to do. So it's reiterating the already generally understood principle that the burden of proof is on the applicant. We may not enumerate exactly every piece of paper that they need to give us, but if they have not provided sufficient information, that is on them. And it's their responsibility to make sure that the ZBA has all of the information that they need in order to issue that special exception. And then criterias 2, 3, 4, and 5 remain unchanged except renumbered. And I'd like to change this second instance of use to impacts as well. The second set of special exception criteria is to undertake a use that's otherwise permitted by the ordinance, but that requires an impact directly to the wetland or its setback. So in this case, the use is permitted and it's occurring outside of the wetland, but you have to cross through the wetland to get there. In this case, the use would otherwise be permitted, but it's actively occurring within the setback or wetland proper. So again, the findings of the Conservation Commission actually looking at that, that probably should have similar changes to this section. Actually, yeah, I think a section, I think some of the insert sections here were not inserted down below. If I can look at these side by side for a second. The applicant shall first meet with the Conservation Commission and written findings. Yeah, so if I can suggest another new change here, that the language of number 1 be the same as the language of the other number 1 above, to have the benefit of some of those similar written comments, written findings, and you know, meeting with the Conservation Commission first. Number 2, again, is that same language regarding submitting sufficient information necessary for the ZBA to make its decision. And then numbers 3, 4, and 5 remain unchanged but renumbered. Are there any questions related to that, including the 3 additional minor tweaks that I'm suggesting tonight?
Nope.
We then get to the former section 5 regarding setbacks that's being deleted because it's relocated. And then finally, we are at section 6 regarding high priority wetlands. So as I said before, all of these requirements already exist someplace. Previously, they had been tucked under the setbacks. So the 100-foot setback was listed in the former section 5A. We're proposing to keep that setback at 100 feet in distance, but we felt that we needed to flesh out a description of those high priority wetlands and organize that requirement a little bit better. So I've put a separate purpose statement specific to this higher regulated portion of the wetland. The section B regarding setbacks, it simply says the setback is 100 feet. And then section C is where we start to talk about the rules for that. So no disturbance, dredging, filling, or construction of those structures, driveways, or roads is permitted within the wetland area proper or within that 100-foot setback. Vegetation within those wetlands and within the setback shall remain in its natural state. So this is closer to a no disturb, no cut wetland overlay and setback. And then the sole exceptions are the following. Generally the cutting of vegetation or disturbance or placement of structures that are necessary for removal of invasive species, and disturbance, alteration, or cutting as necessary for habitat or wildlife management plans. In both of those cases, we want them to use best practices. And number 3, we suggest that they meet with the Conservation Commission to discuss those best practices, but do not require somebody to do so. And then finally, paragraph D, we clarify that any relief to the high priority wetlands regulation cannot be granted by special exception, as it would be for other areas of the overlay. The only way to grant relief to section 6 is with a variance from the ZBA, which is a higher burden of proof. And we don't need to list those criteria again because they're set by state statute. So any questions on this section?
I like the way this has been done.
It's good. Very good.
And then finally, for members of the public that you'll want to access this, if it's available online or in the town office, I have my comments going section by section, so they should be able to read these at their leisure and follow along.
Okay. Questions from the board on anything that's been presented, even though you've been asked before?
I have a question which may relate to what you were talking about earlier, Bob. I'm just curious. Is there any? Are there any numbers on what percentage of the wetlands in
Sorry, say that again.
What percentage of the wetlands in Northwood would qualify as high priority wetlands based on this layout as compared to those that aren't?
That should be on the chart.
There are, I don't know how many prime wetlands there are, but those need to be put onto a list. So there is a set number of those. As far as wetlands that are in the conservation area overlay district, those are 3 large parcel or large areas of backland. I think they were set at a buffer of like half a mile from roads and a mile from Route 4 or something like that.
1,000 feet.
What's that?
There's 19 prime wetlands and they're 1,000 feet setback from the road.
Okay. So not
in
quite
some
as far as
cases it's greater than that, but that's the minimum that it can be.
Okay. So, for those conservation area overlays, the best we would be able to do would be some sort of a GIS analysis. If you would really like to see that, that would probably take Jackson, 15 minutes to do, most of which would be ARC loading up and doing the calculation. But we are not, as part of this, we're not proposing a change to the areas that would fall under that portion of the overlay. And I think for the conservation area in particular, even though it may be a significant percentage of the wetlands in Northwood by total area, I think that its distance from any road, and particularly its distance from Route 4, makes it considerably less likely that those wetlands would be subject to somebody looking to develop right now. It doesn't mean it wouldn't happen, but somebody has to be looking to go pretty deep before that comes into play.
Okay. I didn't mean to take things off on a tangent.
No, that's fine.
That's a good question. I'm working on Granite on my other monitor to see if I can at least get some kind of number.
Yeah, just as a general comment, maybe we can work on getting that onto the assessing data as an overlay. James, does Stratford Regional Planning still run that for us, or did we switch to
We do not. You switched to a service that was done through the people who do your tax maps.
Right.
We have finally pulled the plug on MapGeo as a service, and we've moved a lot of our services over to an ARC Online platform. So we do still have a lot of the same maps and ability to toggle some of those layers. And our GIS planner actually did a tutorial that I believe was recorded over the winter. So you people who want to learn how to use our platform have resources.
Yeah, okay. Well, maybe we generate some maps. I think it'd be useful to see it, but I don't think it affects our ability to approve this or move it along.
Agreed. Okay. We have one member of the public, Ms. Sanderson, is with us. So I'll open at this point in time the hearing to public comment if anyone would like to comment at this point.
Good evening. I'm Pam Sanderson, Zoning Board, and I just want to say, first off, kudos to James for clarity. Again, our role is application of the zoning regulations. So this looks very good to me, understandable. It is organized, and I have no questions or issues.
Thank you. Okay, I will open up. Well, I don't see anyone else here, but I'd open up for comment or questions or discussion from board members at this point.
Bob, just a technicality. Did anybody send in any written comments? Email or anything like that?
Not that I've received, but I don't know if anybody from staff.
Well, you're the chair, so I would assume they would have come to you if we.
Well, yeah, but
I have not received any.
Okay, good, Linda. Okay, thank you. So
No,
Linda, okay, then.
And also, at this point, it would be best if everyone has had an opportunity to speak from the public. And as Selectman Chairman Kreider noted, there's no correspondence. It would be best to close the public comment and move on to the board.
Okay, I'll close public comment at this point. Okay, discussion from the board then, or continuing discussion.
I like it just the way it is.
I think a nice job was done. I have to agree with Ms. Anderson that, you know, kudos to James and Linda and Susan on getting this together. One of the things that I will add, and it's just for me, as we document this, I would love to have in the printed version or PDF or however, a way to know whether it's in the footer or something to that effect, what page, what section you're on by page. So that, for instance, James, if you scroll down, since you're still screen sharing, where you have draft for public hearing, I know that I'm in Romans 6, section 6, you know, for whatever it is at the top, repeated throughout, so that as we refer to sections in a case hearing, you know, that I don't have to go through scrambling to know that, you know, section 6 is 15 pages long and I need to go to page 5 within that. So, but just, it's not a matter.
I don't know how to do that in Word.
If I knew how to do it, I would have done it, but I don't know how to do that.
No, I understand what you're saying, because if you go right here, you don't know
where you are,
what big paragraph you're in until you scroll all the way back up to the top. And I agree that would make this more user friendly. apart from you having to go back up to the front and check the table of contents and get your page and go.
Right. Agreed.
But that would be something that we'd have to see if there are options.
Yes, exactly.
Well, once it gets put into the zoning, are you talking about now or after it gets in the zoning ordinance?
Whenever it is, it does not matter. It's more a desire to make documents like this more user friendly so that you don't get lost in them or having to do exactly as James saying. I need to know that I need to go to Romans 6, but which page starts Romans 6? And am I on, subparagraph A:2, or am I on page of section 5, or am I in section Romans 6? Doesn't matter. And I know James understood my point.
Well,
it does not affect the content.
No, I understand, and I think I think I could do what you're asking in Word.
Okay.
I just at this point I don't see any point in doing this one because
agreed. Yeah, it's not something
it's going to go away.
Yeah,
it's going to become part of the zoning ordinance.
Correct. Correct.
So that's
certainly something
we could
to think
put at
about
the bottom in April when we're incorporating the changes.
Well, I don't think we want to do it then because you'd have to do the whole zoning ordinance that way.
Are you suggesting you would do it by hand, like manually? Well, there may not be another way. You might need to make each one unique.
Let me see if I can find some coding on it. There's got to be a way to do it.
Yeah, we can see because I think when you're doing this, when you're doing this kind of stuff, you should theoretically be able to make sections in the Word document. So it might at least be able to tell you what section you're in.
That's all I've been looking for.
Yeah, we can research that over the next couple of months and do a little bit of Googling.
No hurry on it. Like I said, it doesn't affect the wording or the content or the intent. It's more making things user friendly. And I haven't found a solution for it. So that's why
here's another advantage to that, Bob. It's a really good point because a lot of times, of course, now we don't have people coming into the town hall so much, but people would come in and they want to know about this particular section and they'll say, well, could you just print that page off?
Right.
And then you go to the photocopier, you print it, and it doesn't have the section
correct
at the top. So it's a really good point.
I've looked, not to take that much time, but I've looked at the outlining options in Word, trying to get, in this case where we have letter B, instead of it's listing as letter B, is listing the whole subsection. So it'd be, Romans 6, A, 1B, instead of just the letter B, but 6-1, doesn't matter. It's a technical issue, not a planning board content issue. So what's
I don't
next?
think I'd want to do it by hand though.
No. So what is next with our proposed amendments?
So if there's anything else that you wish to discuss, you can keep doing that, including proposing changes to the document. Once you've finished discussing tonight, your two options would be to schedule a second public hearing or to have a motion and a vote to send the proposed changes to the ballot. In either case, I would respectfully request that the motion be for the document as amended. Again, with these three sections highlighted in yellow to cover, parallel changes in this paragraph 1, that use change to impact, and this uses change to impact. And I will make those, well, actually I can make those changes right now.
Do you,
Same.
before you do that, James, I know they're minimal in nature, but do you not feel that by making those changes that you would need a second public hearing? Because what would be going to the ballot would be different than what was posted.
Right, but can you not, at a second public hearing, you can still make the changes to send to the ballot? Otherwise, the decision would be, can we take comments from the public, and then you can't do anything to respond to those comments short of send it or vote it down.
No, then that's the purpose of having the second public hearing. Let's say the board tonight wanted to go from a 20-foot structure setback to a 40-foot. They could vote that tonight because let's say someone came on and said, there was testimony to that effect. Then it has to be reposted in a second public hearing. And I think that would be the case here as well, because even though they're minimal, it could be understood that impacts is different than uses.
Except that, not disagreeing with you, Linda, but pointing out that item A right there is posted as uses and impacts, using both words, and both instances.
It is?
Yeah.
Look at letter A. Those strike through uses and add impacts.
It's only this yellow one that didn't get done.
Correct. And then one in this paragraph,
and then
same section.
One down here. I think.
Well, and then you're saying the written, it has to be in writing. I realize it's clarifying, but I would just check with council. We have been through so much trying to get zoning amendments passed in the past, and on some technicality they get tossed. So if you do, I'm just saying that it may require a 5-minute public hearing a couple of weeks from now. I would check with council. If council says these are minimal and they don't need anything, then, but I would certainly recommend having it checked out.
Well, the board needs to make the motion one way or the other tonight, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion on the content of the zoning amendments? I would entertain a motion to send the amended zoning amendments as presented to the ballot.
That's
So moved.
not what Linda just suggested.
Oh, yes.
Sure is.
Because of those minor
Yeah,
changes.
because of minor.
As amended.
Okay, so.
But since we're not required to notice in the paper, if we were allowed by the recent changes to use the town's website instead, we could notice for a hearing at a regularly scheduled meeting on the 28th.
No, we cannot.
Why
No,
not?
we cannot. Because
not?
it has to be, the warrant has to be posted on January 26th, including all those amendments. We're under a pretty.
I was just looking at the SB2 calendar today, and I thought it was February.
Not to my knowledge. It's January 26th, the warrant has to be posted. Let me look it up real quick. Oh, you might have been looking at April's or March. Monday, January. Oh, I'm sorry. It was actually Monday, January 25th. last day for planning board to hold final public hearing on adoption or amendment of zoning ordinance.
January
Because any-
25th.
Because any proposed ordinance or amendment must be included in a warrant. So we would actually have to meet on the 21st.
What
The
document
14th
are
is too
you
close.
looking at?
On NHMA's important dates for local officials, SB2 March town meeting calendar.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, I see what you're reading. You're reading,
I
Any
think I was
official-
reading the April town meeting, SB2 town meeting calendar, which is my mistake.
Okay.
so the only option for the second one would be the 21st. Or another date,
Exactly.
12 days from, I mean, I could do it tomorrow, but then be the 20th would be the, no, I'm sorry, 10. Yeah, be the 20th, so the 21st. It's 10 days on these, on zoning amendments.
10 that are 12.
10 that are
'Cause you
12,
can't-
correct.
Yeah, you can't count the meeting or the
Yep.
date of notice.
Okay. And the alternate then would be to post as
The
noted.
alternative would be to send to the ballot as written, which the two uses, I don't think it's the biggest deal. I think it's technically more consistent
Yep.
with making the change. But the word use is still used in various places throughout the ordinance, and
Yes.
you know, we didn't just do a find and replace. All uses are now impacts.
Correct.
The change to the Conservation Commission paragraph, again, I like it better for consistency's sake and clarity's sake, but I don't think it is actually in effect changing anything. I don't think it would be the worst thing if the language is how it was proposed for tonight.
Yep. Is
Well-
there, just out of curiosity, and this is something for Linda probably more than anything else, is there the possibility of, no, well, never mind, I can answer that question myself.
Well, I guess, the other option would be to, no, that isn't going to work either. I guess I was going to say, we could send this forward with the idea, with these changes, that the second public hearing would be held and then confirm with town council. I still think it's only actually number one. I'm not concerned about the word uses, but when you start adding written findings and minutes and all that, I think it's really great that it's in there. I will say that I am not aware of a time that the zoning board did not provide written comments. That's more or less,
You mean
Then
the Conservation
it's-
Commission?
yes, I'm sorry, the Conservation Commission to the zoning board.
Mhm.
And
But that could change in the future. I mean, because
we
the
also
same
had
person's working
somebody
with-
bring up something to our attention about a completely separate part of the ordinance. Where I think when we had discussed the changes, actually, I think it's the steep slopes overlay. When we had discussed the changes, we went back and forth about, do we want to keep it as a special exception or make it a conditional use permit approved by the planning board? And one instance of the phrase conditional use permit got left in the draft. So I think from an interpretation standpoint in that example, we need to just read it as a special exception because we have nothing else that refers to that, but it's something that we would probably want to get into a cleanup amendment next year. and just say, hey, we're making all of these minor language tweaks. If we want this to be consistent, if we like it as it is, we don't want to have a second public hearing, and we want to just add that to the list for a housekeeping amendment next year, we can do it that way.
Is there, I guess I'm leaning in toward that in favor, but let me ask this. Is there a way to put a condition on a motion that if we adopt the amended language to go to the ballot, unless disallowed by town council? Is that a legit motion?
That could get confusing.
Yeah,
I think it would get confusing, and I
thought I'd ask.
think tomorrow is a Friday, and also the last day we would be able
Okay.
to notice for the day before getting it in the warrant.
Yep. Okay.
So if we miss town council tomorrow for an answer, we're not posting in time.
Okay. So I think that leaves us with the option to post as written, with the idea of amending next year for minor language tweaks.
Well, I'll throw out another thought,
Okay.
and probably nobody wants to hear this, but then because I'm dealing with the other issue as well now, we have someone who will be applying for that, and that question is coming up about the steep slopes. We could put this all forward for a second public hearing, including adding that cleanup on the steep slope, because we know that it's simply just a language change that was some oversight. The problem with it also is that if anything happens on the 21st, power failure, whatever, it's really getting it too tight. So
yes.
Bottom line might be best to go with what we have and come back again next year with a more, a different list of items.
Okay. Discussion from the board on approaches or how they'd like to do it?
I have an opinion. I think if we have time to do it right and meet on the 21st, I think we should.
What day of the week is the 21st?
Thursday.
That's a Thursday.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Tim with the issue that Linda brought up, or with the exception of the issue that Linda brought up. If we miss that chance, then this doesn't go forward, and we really hate to have that happen. Is there a chance for an intermediate meeting, or does the noticing not?
No.
No.
No. Well, the other thing is where we're meeting on Zoom. I mean, reality is we could meet Friday night. I don't know what people's schedules are. Probably.
But you said the
or 9
warrant needs to
a.m.
be posted on the 22nd?
We need to post the public hearing, second public.
Right. You need a
No,
quorum.
we need to
continue it if there was an
move
issue.
to
on the
send this to the ballot before the warrant needs to be compiled. And the warrant, you said, needs to be compiled Friday, the 22nd?
Yes, I don't want to be doing it Monday morning.
Okay. So that
Well,
leaves-
here's another thought, and I think it can be done this way.
Okay, that's okay.
Vote today, at the end of this, if you vote today to send this to the ballot, and then vote the other changes for a second public hearing. And then if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen.
Good
We
point.
have to vote to reconsider at that point, Linda?
Mhm.
That second one?
You're amending, the second one would be amending the posted language.
Let me give you an example that might make it seem more sensible. let's say it says 20 feet now for the structure setback. I'll use that because the other things are so minor. Let's say the board was wrestling with the idea of making that a 80-foot structure setback. But they wanted to make sure that the 20 foot isn't changing, so it's probably not a good example, but wrestling with the idea of possibly a more significant change. If you were to do that and you went to your second public hearing and you got all kinds of feedback saying, oh no, we don't want 80, we want 30, whatever, or we want 20. After the second public hearing, you cannot make changes. You either have to vote at the end of that second public hearing for what was posted or nothing. So again, the simplest way out is to go forward with this now. And, you know, if we had a week in between, it would seem more reasonable that you could vote for this to go to the ballot and then next week meet and say, well, we've thought about this and we'd like to propose, you know, a different change, but all in the same meeting seems kind of silly. Probably should just make a decision and go with it one way or the other.
What's the notice requirement, posting notice requirement, 10 days?
It must be 10 days, but it cannot include the day of the meeting or the day of the notice. So it's effectively 12 days.
Right.
So posting for the 8th for a meeting on the 21st is the shortest timeline.
But if we vote on it now, there's nothing to say that we can't, if we are able to meet on the 21st, we can post for that with the changes. And if we don't get it, we just don't get it. But at least we have
Linda's third approach of voting to move what's been presented tonight to the ballot and then amending.
But I believe, Linda, what we would be doing then, and correct me if I'm wrong, is we would be sending this to the ballot as warrant article 2. And what we would be sending next week would be, or on the 21st, if the board voted to make the subsequent changes, we would be sending a separate warrant article 3.
No, absolutely
making
not.
Changes to number 2.
No. Oh, no, we don't want to get into that.
Yeah, no.
Years ago, we did that with the police commission, and
it's
it
doable,
ended up.
But it would require a lot of very carefully worded ballot language.
Yeah, no, I don't.
These are not significant enough changes to warrant the hassle involved in the legal cost to determine.
I completely agree, which is why. But if we make the motion to send this to the ballot tonight, how would we take that back at another hearing?
We vote to reconsider. If we are able to meet on Thursday, the 21st, we vote to reconsider.
Well, no, it wouldn't be reconsider. It would be replacing the decision of tonight with a different motion. But rather than create all this confusion that could be legally challenged, the language that James has really, even though it's better language, like I said, we're only a year out. We've always done written findings. Uses is, no one's going to question impacts versus uses. Nobody's going to go to court over that.
Yeah.
But somebody will go to court if they feel that this was a confusing process and something wasn't done by the letter of the law.
Okay, let me ask this, because I think we're I won't say circling the drain, but I think that sounds resolved. Is there the option at this point to post a first notice correction for the steep slopes bit for the 21st?
Yes.
Okay. Before we even broach that, but just to see if anybody's interested. Are we clear on how people clear on the process for what we need now? Because I was going to ask for a motion to.
I believe the motion was to send them to the ballot as written.
But it was as amended. But I don't know who, I know I
Oh,
phrased
you're correct. It was as amended.
And I don't know who said so moved or seconded. I didn't hear any.
If you don't remember, you could just vote it down.
Well, but I don't even know if we got a second to even make a motion. So
I didn't even hear either.
Anybody recall if they said so moved or seconded?
I said so moved.
Okay, so Betty did say so moved. I don't recall a second. Did we get a second on the motion?
To put it on the ballot?
To put it on the ballot as amended, using the amended language.
If that's what Betty said I seconded after she said it.
Okay, so.
I threw in as amended, just because you'd been talking about it, that an amendment.
Okay. So it sounds like the motion was made and seconded.
Excuse me, Bob.
Yep.
Just to be clear, as you just said, the amended language, are you now by that including James's desire to dress up the couple of uses?
Yes.
So it feels like where we're landing is all of the 3 things that I brought up tonight that were not already in the posted draft. We're suggesting to drop those and send it as posted.
Yes, so, but the motion is to send the amended language to the floor, to the ballot. And either we need to vote on that or we need to withdraw the motion, one of the two. At this point, I would say because we have a motion,
Okay.
Let me go, Joe.
Yep.
I would suggest that we vote on this. That is sending the amended language to the ballot. A vote yes means we send the language, including the yellow stuff, the uses and the Conservation Commission, to the ballot. A no means that we do not send that to the ballot. I believe Linda has made the recommendation not to send the amended language to the ballot.
But are we not hearing?
Can you, for a point of clarification, if you call this the posted language, then it's very clear that because
good point.
Using the term amended, meaning amended tonight, amended
Yep.
originally. So if we say the posted language.
If I speak out of line, overruled.
I think it's easiest just for Betty to withdraw her motion. I think you're getting into, can we vote up or down so that we can have a new motion? If Betty's willing to withdraw her motion and make a new one, I think that's easiest.
Withdrawn.
I'll withdraw the second.
Thank you. Okay, that's fine too. I don't like to dominate more than I do as far as motions go. Okay.
And now I would suggest Linda's language to send the proposed amendments as posted to the ballot.
Okay, so now you're losing me on this.
So the language as posted, so none of the highlights that I did, as it was posted for the hearing.
Yes.
And why are we taking, I guess I thought that the path out of this was if we agree to the amendments, then it's fixed and we move on.
No.
Okay.
No, it has to be.
What we're suggesting is the 3 things that I brought up tonight would need the second hearing.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Which would need to be posted, which means we would have to be on the 21st to meet all the deadlines.
If all we want to do is send it to the ballot tonight and not have another hearing, we need to do it with the language as posted. If we want to have the second hearing, but we want a fail-safe just in case something prevents us from having that hearing, we would still need to send the posted language to the ballot.
Okay.
And then we could make another motion to post a second hearing for minor changes.
Okay, so somewhere in that discussion, I missed the point that we can't change the wording tonight.
Correct.
You cannot both change the wording tonight and send the changed wording to the ballot.
Okay.
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
So the motion has been withdrawn. At this time, I would accept a motion to send the posted language to the ballot.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Okay.
Second.
I guess we'll give that to Joe and the second to Mr. Kreider. I heard Betty in there as well. Discussion on sending the posted language to the ballot. Hearing none, Susan will do a roll call vote, please.
Tim,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Joe,
yes.
Dwayne,
Yes.
Hal,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Victoria,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes, and I should note that we actually have a complete board, including an alternate. And I never made voting designations. So Dwayne is actually out for the vote. 1, 2,
Sorry
3,
about that.
4, 5, 6, 7. Yes. So voting designation is all full members. My apologies, Dwayne.
No problem.
Thank you for your vote, though. Even if we don't include it, it doesn't matter at this point. Okay, so we voted to send the posted language. At this point, as we've discussed, we would be looking at adding a second hearing to address some minor language changes on January 21st, which is 2 weeks from tonight, which means we would be meeting every night for this month, every Thursday night for this month, even though that second night hearing might be very short. We would need a quorum to do so, and it would need to be added to the calendar.
I guess that was the other, I guess that's the other thing that Linda maybe didn't mention, but is a possibility. If we don't get a quorum next time, we can't change it either.
Correct. Well, we have our fail-safe.
Yeah, so maybe it was best to take this approach.
Yep.
That-
But that would give, if we wanted to make the changes tonight, proposed tonight in yellow, and fix the steep slopes, those would be the content for the 21st.
Just, I don't have a calendar in front of me, Bob, but and I may not be adding too efficiently tonight, but isn't the 20th a possible go on this with the 12-day window that James was describing, starting with the 8th? Don't we wind up on the 20th as a possibility of doing something, taking action, having a meeting?
No. The 20th is the 12th. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I take that back.
He's correct.
It is correct.
He's correct. We could post for the 20th if it got up tomorrow.
What benefit is that, Joe? Aside from
I'm just saying it gives us 2 days to wrestle with. That's all. That's all. I was just
okay.
Minor.
Good thinking.
Yeah, I
appreciate the consideration.
Actually, for that matter, it could be the 19th. We post on the 8th, and then we have day 1, day 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the 10th day of notice would be Monday, the 18th. So you could hold a meeting the 19th, the 20th, or the 21st.
Well, the selectmen are meeting the 19th, so we might lose Hal.
Not to say that those are any better.
Mistake.
I think the 21st is still likely to be the best.
We heard from Tim, we heard from Hal that they would both like to address some of the language issues. Are there other people who want to do so?
Sure. And I think it'll be quick.
I tend to agree, but anybody else?
No, I think that's fine from my standpoint. Simply, I mean, Tim made a good point. And besides, we've discussed this. It's fresh, relatively fresh in our minds. We get it out of the way now. It's not something like the suggestion that maybe we dress it up next year. It'll have to be rehashed in the same fashion. We've already done that, so.
Okay. Do we have?
Bob?
Yes, go ahead, Betty.
For what it's worth, I'm not available on the 20th.
Okay. And I need to look at my calendar as well. Okay. If we want to do this, I would like to get a commitment from at least a quorum of members that we will be there on the 19th, the 20th, or 21st. I know Betty's out on the 20th. I'm available all 3 of those nights for the hopefully a half hour that it'll take. Anybody have a preference on date?
21st.
But Tim, you just only want to take it on the 21st and risk not having a second chance at it?
Why do we need a second? Why would we not?
Why? You know, to me, planning board's on Thursday, so I just like that.
Yeah.
I thought the whole reason for the discussion was that, well, I was worried that, okay, on the 21st, we have a heavy wet snowstorm like we did that one select board meeting, and it wiped out the internet for the town. And so therefore we lose the chance to do it.
Same problem on the 20th or the 19th. If you don't post for it this week, you can't have a fallback. You would need to post the fallback.
But you can't post for a fallback?
No.
Oh, well, if you can't post for a fallback, I'm with Tim then, the 21st. That's the day we meet.
I agree.
Yeah, I thought there was some option there where we could do it one day and then push it back to the next day if there was a problem. If you're saying no, well then yeah, let's not go nuts on this.
You might be able to post for here's date A and here's our rain date if you put it in the notice, but even that is getting
if that's
a little bit unusual.
Well, the only way it could work is if it's posted for the 21st and there's a problem the 21st, if you can get 4 planning board members to be online and administratively continue it to the next day or Saturday morning at 9 o'clock.
Open the hearing.
Yeah.
Have it going. If you continue to a date and time certain, you don't get notice for that.
Yeah, we're getting too complicated. The 21st is fine for me.
Okay.
It's going to be sunny and 80 degrees.
Okay.
In worst scenario is we have the fail safe.
Right. We have the fail safe in place. What I'd entertain a motion to schedule a second public hearing.
Hold on.
Yep.
So if you're going to make a motion to schedule a public hearing, I think we need to talk about what the public hearing is covering.
Okay.
Because you brought up the possibility of also covering the language for the conditional use permit to, under the steep slopes. And I think that if you are going to do that, that is warrant article number 3.
I would agree with that.
So if you want to post a hearing to make that change this year, I think I need to show you exactly what we're changing tonight.
My understanding of it was that it was largely procedural or a language change.
It is, but we're going to have to put the section into the line item change, and we're going to have to write the ballot language. Are you in favor of the proposed change to replace this language with that language? If it was in with a bunch of other changes, we would just say, several minor housekeeping amendments as noted.
Okay.
But if it's the only thing, we may as well say it. So I'm going to share my screen again.
Okay. Before we do that, let's ask.
I guess I'm a bit confused. So you're talking about the steep slopes now, James? I don't think the language, if the language is updated at the second public hearing in the wetlands overlay section, I think the board after that public hearing can vote to include whatever is in that wetlands overlay district, which is both.
Right. No, what I'm talking about is the steep slope that somebody
that would be the third warrant article.
Right.
Correct.
That somebody else had asked, can we also take care of that?
Yes. Is the board amenable to making corrections on top of corrections for our second public hearing?
Yes.
For which topic, steep slopes or the other one?
Well, we have the yellow language that we just talked about.
Okay.
That would be one. We have, staff has mentioned that there is a steep slopes correction that we could also do on the same second public hearing. But I don't know the exact content of it.
Well,
that's what James was about to show us.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I understand now. It was getting confusing for me. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I agree.
If we could keep the two separate, but if I could just say,
I don't think
I would be more concerned about
if this waits another year.
I would be more.
Linda, go ahead.
I'm concerned about the steep slope one, not the other one, because the steep slope issue could present an issue as far as being legally defendable, because now the way it's written, we don't have any mechanism for creating a conditional use permit, and we don't have any forms for that. Yet that's what our regulation says. And we may go a whole nother year and no one will apply for a special exception for that, but we have one right now that just applied for that. So I'm concerned that we clean that up is far more important than whether or not we add comments in writing from the Conservation Commission.
Okay. James, why don't you go ahead and show us the content for steep slopes? So at least we know have seen what we're talking about.
While you're pulling that up, I'm going to have to grab a glass of water.
It's pulled up.
We got more than enough. How can disappear? We're not
so again, section 6 of the ordinance is overlays. Section 6E is the steep slope protection overlay district. And within the steep slope protection overlay district, section 6E5 application requirements. is applications for a conditional use permit will be made on forms provided by the town. This is the only instance of the term conditional use permit in the entire Northwood zoning ordinance. Every other mention is to a special exception. Section 4 deems that a special exception is required. But then in Section 5, where they would be making the application for said special exception, that's where we refer to a conditional use permit. And that's why it's confusing. And that's what we would want to clean up. So we would simply, what I would probably do is show, as I did Section 6 regarding overlays, this section heading, steep slope protection overlay district, and then I would just pull this paragraph application requirements and show strike through conditional use permit,
Right.
and then the underline proposed to add special exception.
Okay, pretty straightforward.
Yeah, the ballot language I would write out, but it would be something to the effect of, are you in favor of zoning amendment number 2 to clarify that relief to the steep slope protection overlay district requires a special exception from the zoning board of adjustment and not a conditional use permit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Real straightforward.
Okay,
Well, Linda indicated this is important to do.
agreed.
So is there a detriment to adding this to what we consider on the 21st?
No,
I don't think so.
Okay.
That would be the only hearing on it, but it's an incredibly minor change. I think that, the absolute worst case scenario, if somebody were to make a fuss about it, would be that we would point to this and say, this is literally the only instance of this term in the ordinance. Clearly it's a typo. So we would be no worse off than we are right now.
Right.
But I really don't see a way, short of somebody not understanding it and it getting voted down, but I don't see a way it would
James,
have an issue.
Well,
point of information.
Yep.
Do we have in our there's I don't know what it is, glossary? I may be using the wrong term. Don't we have a page of definitions?
Yep.
It does by any chance conditional use or conditional use permit show up as a defined item?
It does not.
No.
I did a Control F for the word conditional, and this is literally the only one.
Okay.
So James, this is a small but meaningful change, and I think I would imagine that a lot of people would have no idea what the difference is. So perhaps there should be a brief way to explain that.
Yeah, so if people are watching tonight, conditional use permits and special exceptions are basically the same thing. They are a way of granting relief to the zoning ordinance. And in both cases, they require the zoning ordinance to list the specific criteria that a board considers when granting them. So they're different from a variance in that a variance, the conditions that need to be considered are set by state statute. For a conditional use permit or a special exception, we get to set those terms in our ordinance. The way they are used colloquially in New Hampshire is that conditional use permits are approved by the planning board and special exceptions are approved by the zoning board of adjustment, but otherwise they are effectively the same mechanism. So yeah, this is an issue where we had discussed whether we wanted to change which board would approve the relief. We ended up deciding that we did not want to make that change. We wanted to keep the relief with the ZBA. But there was, this language change that I had made in one of the drafts that I failed to fix. So, for minor changes like this, it's not uncommon to say in the ballot language, this will not have a regulatory effect. It's for clarification purposes only. And we can certainly put, a minor caveat like that. If legal counsel doesn't object, we would simply be asking for all of the terminology to be consistent with the regulatory structure that we have put in place.
Okay.
I wonder if at the hearing that I hope we're going to have that you could bring to the board and any public a couple of issues of how this would come into play. Examples.
Yeah.
I can tell you at the hearing next time exactly how this was brought to our attention and what the confusion was.
Okay. Yeah, just for clarification. I mean,
Yeah.
I think I got most of it, but I would like to be real clear, and maybe people would too.
Yep.
Yeah. An example always helps you understand.
Yeah.
And I will also mention that last year when this was being done, and it was just a accidental oversight that it wasn't changed. It was intended to be changed, but last year when this was being done, the planning board asked the zoning board for their input, and they said that they came back and said they would like this relief from the zoning ordinance within their domain. And that's why it was not changed to a conditional use permit. I see it conflicting. And if my concern is not that some person is going to come in and say, oh, I'm confused here. My concern is an attorney coming in and saying, you have a problem with the way your ordinance is written. It's, it notes a special exception. And yes, under a special exception, technically the zoning board can ask for anything they want, but then it goes on to include a conditional use permit on forms provided by the town. And we don't have anything set up to process. And it's basically saying you need to do this, but here's how you do it. And here's how you do it is not the zoning board. So it is conflicting.
Definitely.
So let's fix it.
My opinion, solely my opinion.
No,
And
I agree.
But we can fix it next meeting, right?
I think it's a simple fix. I'd prefer it be fixed.
Yeah, let's do that.
I don't have any problems fixing it. Okay.
So, Bob, do you need a motion to have a hearing on this, or can you just do it?
Yes, we need a motion to have a hearing on this. It's a question of, and I think we addressed the conditional use permit steep slopes bit that's on the screen. It's also a question of, do we want to address as well the yellow highlights for the wetlands?
Yeah, I thought that was a given, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
I thought the yellow highlights were the reason we were meeting on the 21st, and the discussion was whether we should add this. Maybe I got it backwards. I don't know.
that's what I thought too.
Okay. Well,
So a motion to meet on both, I'll make a motion that we meet on both issues on the 27 o'clock.
okay. Second. So motion by Mr. Jandifer, second by Mr. Kreider to meet on the 21st, or to have a public hearing on the 21st for these two issues.
And if you could just add as stated by planner James Burdine, so that exactly how he worded it would be what's being posted for the notice.
Okay. I guess someone needs to do that. I can't. Hal?
Yeah, I'll go with the change.
Tim?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're now set for the 21st, at 7 o'clock.
We didn't vote, Bob.
Pardon me?
We didn't vote.
Oh, true. Good point. Sorry.
And if I could just,
It's late.
I don't think we need legal counsel to review this, but if you want, I can do that.
No, you,
Let's move
Not
on.
if we're
I
legally
was gonna
changing.
say, I don't, that would be,
Just asking.
No.
yeah, good point. I think that's a minor change. Okay. Discussion on the motion to meet on the 20, post a public hearing for the conditional use permit language change and the yellow highlights change. Hearing none. Susan will do a roll call vote, please.
Victoria,
yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Al,
Yes,
Joe,
Yes,
Lee,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
and Bob.
Yes. Okay. So we're now
Mr.
set for
Chairman,
the,
if I could just add one other comment and I'll stop talking.
okay, go ahead.
But I think James has a good point in bringing up the difference and his original idea of possibly going with conditional use permits. I just don't think that's a discussion for tonight, but I think it's something that should be considered in the future for the planning board to really look at whether, particularly for steep slopes, whether or not the conditional use permit may be a better avenue than the zoning board, only because, just again, my opinion, I think that the planning board may be more familiar with steep slopes as far as they apply to grades and development and that type of thing, as opposed to possibly the zoning board.
Okay.
But I think that's a discussion for another night, but I don't
Yeah,
think
not
that
tonight.
should be, I think it should be kept on the back burner for
Do
consideration.
we have a back burner file somewhere?
James does.
Okay. Sort of what I thought.
It's sort of whatever pops into my head when we
Well-
get ready to start making our list.
I can say from experience that as you get older, the back burner list gets harder to ignite. Is why I tend to write them down.
Get your thoughts in there.
Okay. So we have that addressed. We have our backstop for our zoning amendment language done. Thank you. We have a meeting, first hearing on this change for the 21st. Linda, you brought up the idea of having legal review for the yellow language changes for the wetlands. Can we still do that?
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, I can call the attorney. I'm not concerned about that. I guess.
Yeah.
I
need
don't
that
really
now?
see any need of it. She's already reviewed.
She's already reviewed the language and it's, simply making the same changes she's already reviewed and signed off on again.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So are we okay without doing legal review of the proposed yellow changes that we discussed earlier?
Yes.
and
Okay.
it seems to me that the whole point of having this second meeting that we've been discussing for quite a while is to make it legal,
Right.
to follow normal procedure. And it seems to me it obviates the need to consult the attorney at, I assume, some additional cost. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Okay. And I got the impression from town staff that the changes are minor. It's more procedural, but we've taken care of that by having a second hearing. Am I correct in that statement? Okay.
Yes.
I got a head nod. Okay. Just wanted to double check. Anything else then we need for the zoning amendment changes for tonight?
Blessed silence.
Less the silence is good. I don't have any problem with that. Okay. Let me pull up. So we did the zone. We have internal business that comes up. We did get some minutes Susan sent out that I did not get a chance to review tonight. I would rather not review them tonight, if that's okay. I don't think there was anything that impacted this evening's zoning amendment content.
Hey, Bob, just a question on the minutes, and then maybe misunderstood what Susan sent out, but it looked like we had a long list
Yes,
of minutes to approve.
yes.
Okay.
So, but that would be something that we should take a look at for the 14th.
I want to make sure everybody got the stuff I mailed out though. Because I was worried with the mail and stuff. I was worried about that.
Susan, are you talking about like case 21-1, 20? I got 120 dash.
Yeah, there was some material.
Yeah. I mean, I got those in the mail today. Is that what you're referring to?
You just, did you get all the minutes with that?
No, I didn't.
I sent
There
out
was
the
no
minutes.
with it.
Okay, so I sent out the minutes on the 22nd of December.
Oh.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
I think that's all that was in that packet. I think that's.
Maybe if we're going to review all the minutes, let's resend your letter plus add the other ones in the meantime.
Well, I can send them electronically, but my concern is that I sent out packets with hard copies in it, and I the only person. Well, Bob said he got his.
I got mine last week.
Okay.
I didn't get it.
You didn't?
And I don't care if I don't get it.
Okay.
A copy. I just care about the electronic.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll send them out electronically too. I did it because I knew it was going to come up eventually. Like I knew we were going to look at it at some point. So.
Yep.
That's good for me, Susan.
What?
This is Victoria.
Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead, Joe.
No, I got Victoria on twice, I guess. So I said it's good for me. I got the larger packet that just came actually today that covered the new lot line adjustment.
It was before that. It was.
Yes, I follow. Yeah,
okay.
no, electronic is good on that. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, Victoria, go ahead.
I didn't get them, but maybe I wasn't, because I haven't been attending meetings, but
I send them to everybody.
Okay.
Okay.
I can get them.
Well, there was a question about it. So, I was worried about that because I also sent out a package that I could track that just went to a tour of the US. So,
yes.
But I did talk to the post office and he said that, if it was going local, he'd make sure it got local. So I don't know.
Tough time of year.
It's a weird post office time. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
I can't find anything right now.
Okay. Well, let me know within the next, week or so, and I'll send hard copies if you want them, or I'll do everybody electronic.
Okay.
Okay. The other thing, Linda, when are open positions have to be signed for, or you have to put your name in? I know I'm up, and I think Joe is up this year.
Betty's up.
Betty's
I
up.
am.
Is it it's usually the end of January, right?
Yes, actually, I was just looking that up. I had a note here to bring that up. Yeah, it's you and Betty. Joe McCaffrey's 22, Victoria's 22.
Okay. And just for the board's information, I am not renewing my term. I've done 4. That's enough for at least a year.
Well, they say you're just learning the job by doing 4 terms, Bob. Are you sure you want to not continue?
I'm good. We've had 3 applicants, representatives who have said, essentially, you're still on the board. That I recall. So anyway, but doesn't mean I won't run again, but I'm at least taking a year off. So any members who, or people you know of who are interested, please have them talk to them about running.
Yeah.
And anything else that anybody we need to bring up tonight? Okay. I would entertain a motion then for the evening.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Ms. Betty Smith, second by Mr. Kreider to adjourn at 8:51. Discussion?
Adios.
Nope, I don't think we'll need to do a roll call.